Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talking Bullion. Well, today we're going to take a look at the beloved Mercury Dime. You can see here I've got out some tubes of these great coins. I want to kind of take a look at the history of them, where they came from, why they came about, and just kind of discuss why so many people love them so much. I know they're one of my favorite coins, and I think they are for a lot of other people too. So why don't we go ahead and take a look. I think that many people consider the Mercury Dime, which is actually officially called the Winged Liberty Head Dime, to be the most beautifully crafted of all dimes coined by the U.S. Mint. It was first issued in the latter part of 1916, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. And I found an interesting fact that this is the first dime that differed from that year's quarter and half dollar. So these came about after the Barber dime, and at that time the Barber was on the quarter and the half dollar too. So when they put out the Mercury Dime, it kind of broke the mold for having all three look the same. And of course, the quarter changed and the half dollar changed as well. The Mercury Dime got its name from the wings attached to the crown of Lady Liberty, whose image had graced a 90% silver U.S. dime since 1796. And for those of you who don't know, these are 90% silver, which is really cool because they have so much more value than just 10 cents now, right? Besides being collectible and awesome looking, they're 90% silver, which gives them quite a bit of value. The addition of the crowning wings to the head of Lady Liberty was to represent freedom of thought. However, the public saw only the crowning wings of the male god Mercury, and hence its nickname became the common name we use today. So we're talking about the wings here on top of the head. And why don't I go ahead and pull up a bigger picture real quick just to show you what it looks like. So we're talking about these wings right here that are upon the side of the head. Beginning in 1915, the U.S. Mint began to discuss changing the U.S. coins. The gold $10 eagle, the gold $20 double eagle, the 1 cent, and the nickel had now received completely new designs, and the majority feeling was that it was time to do this in the silver dime, quarter, and half dollars. Under the 1890 coinage law, no changes could be made to any coins without first obtaining permission from Congress if they were to happen more frequently than once every 25 years. The Barber coins, those designed by U.S. Mint Chief Engraver Charles Barber, were the dime, quarter, and half dollar. Let's take a quick look at Charles Barber here. That'll be interesting to show what he was like because he's such a big part of our history in our U.S. coinage. So in 1916, the 25-year anniversary would pass, and so the U.S. Mint began its search for new designs for the dime in 1915. All right, so we'll continue on, but while we're doing that, why don't we look at some of these beautiful coins. Let's dump a few out. Take a look here. So each one of these rolls has 50 coins in it, $5 worth. You can see here they kind of have a little, I always thought the dimes had a little unique sound to them. They're a little bit different than other silver, I think. I think they have more of a clunky sound. Let's here I happen to have a few quarters right here. I'm just kind of curious. Let's listen to the quarters here. See how they're a little brighter. Times are a little clunkier sounding. So yeah, I can usually tell when I hear a dime being poured out because it's got that more of that clunky sound to it. But they're still 90% silver. They're still pretty cool. So there's $5 worth of beautiful Mercury dimes. Just pick one up by random. Take a look at it. Pretty cool, huh? Does that say 1928, I think? Take a look at the back here. We'll talk a little bit here in a couple minutes about the design and what it represents, but pretty cool, huh? So that's some mercury. Let's dump out another roll here. So this gives us $10 face and mercury dimes. So as we know, these are continue to pull a little bit of premium compared to other 90%. They usually pull a little bit more than, say, for example, the Roosevelts, because people love them so much. So we were talking about the new designs for the dime that began in 1915. So I'll continue on. The current Mint Department Director, Robert Woolley. So here's a picture of Robert. I just find it interesting to show what some of these people look like because they had, again, such a great past for our country and for our coins. So Robert Woolley decided to open a competition, which resulted in an offer for the opportunity to make designs to 3 different designers for a remake of 3 silver coins. So they asked 3 different designers to remake 3 different silver coins. The first 6 coins had been rendered by Charles Barber, the chief engraver at the time. Barber was the first engraver. However, he had advanced to 75 years old and had the reputation of being hostile to outside artists. He viewed mintage coins as his territory. Many outside the mint felt having different American artists designing U.S. coins was a way to honor the independent spirit of the American people. Robert Woolley was nervous that the invitation to 3 outside artists to redesign Barber's coins would bring down the wrath of Charles Barber and to the artists, making it impossible to work with them to get the engraving completed. History tells us Barber was able to contain himself, perhaps realizing Woolley's wisdom. At 75, Barber's eyes had been failing, among other things. Barber stepped aside and allowed his replacement in training, George T. Morgan. Morgan? Doesn't that sound familiar? Who was the designer of the Morgan dollar to do all of his related work. It is also possible Barber recognized the beauty in the work, as the designs for these coins were truly remarkable. Regardless of the reasons, Morgan took over the project, and in the midst of 1917, Charles Barber died while still in his position, leaving Morgan to become the new chief engraver. Adolph Weinmann, Albin Polisak, and Herbin McNeil were chosen to prepare designs for the 3 silver coins. Adolph Weinmann won the award of 2 coins for his designs, the Winged Lady Liberty and the Walking Liberty $50. Weinmann was an immigrant from Germany, coming to the U.S. at age 10. So here's a picture of Adolph Weinmann. This guy has quite a history with coins in the U.S. Pretty remarkable man. Adolph Weinmann's teacher was a well-known sculptor named August St. Gaudens. Most coin collectors will recognize that name as well. St. Gaudens is credited with some remarkable coin designs himself. By 1915, at the beginning of this design competition, Weinmann was commonly seen as our nation's most talented and celebrated sculptor. The Winged Liberty design, or Mercury dime as we know it today, is based on a bust created in 1913 by Weinmann of Elise Kachel Stevens. Poet Wallace Stevens and his wife Elise were tenants in the apartment building owned by Weinmann. So why don't we take a look? Here's a picture of Elise, and this is what was used to design the Mercury dime. So wow, pretty cool, huh? There's actually a person that this coin was designed off of, that he actually sculpted a real lady for this. It's pretty cool, huh? And let's take a look too. On the reverse, the coin displays the Fasces, symbolizing authority moving forward with time. There is a battle axe above, symbolizing preparedness, an olive branch image that was intended to invoke love and peace through authority. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at a few more of these awesome dimes, huh? Let's get out another roll of these beautiful Mercury dimes. Boy, back a few years ago, I was buying these things up quite a bit back when I was getting them for $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 below spot. And it was really awesome to pick these up by the $10, $20 face value. But look at how awesome these are. Now, there's nothing fantastic. I do have a special roll set aside that seem to be my nicer Mercuries. Now, there's still some decent ones in here. And none of them are real slicks, right? They're all, in respectable condition. They just, they're just circulated, right? All right. So there's a $20 face of Mercury Dimes. So once it was decided they were going to use this design for the Mercury Dime, there was a delay with the dies that were needed to strike the coins, so they were not released until later in the year. Once the dies were completed, production began in both Philadelphia and San Francisco, where they made millions of them during 1916. Coinage need was high in these days, and so silver Barber dimes were also minted that year. Denver, however, had stopped production of the Barber dimes in 1914. Denver minted a sparse 264,000 of the new dimes, which caused the 1916D Mercury dime to be considered rare instantly. So anybody that's collected dimes, Mercury dimes, or really any kind of constitutional silver, knows that the 1916D is one of the rarest coins you can get, especially on the dimes, and that's why, because Denver only manufactured 264,000 of them, while the other two mints, Philadelphia and San Francisco, made millions of them. So not long after it was released in circulation, the public began calling it a Mercury dime instead of the Winged Liberty. Fully struck coins have what are known as full split bands, or you'll see them referred to as FSB. It refers to the Fasces that host clearly defined horizontal bands with clear separation between them. These are premium mint state coins that can demand premium prices. Let's take a look at that. So what they're talking about here is when you look at the back of the coin and you look at the horizontal bands, not the vertical ones, but the horizontal bands. These, if they got the dedicated split between them, where it's not like mashed together, and believe me, it's really hard to find one that has the full split bands. Now these are probably going to be too small on my camera to see, but if I had one, I'd put it under the coin cam to show you. I do have one, I just don't have it with me. But yeah, they're talking about the horizontal band being fully split. In other words, you can see the horizontal line between the bands. So those bring a nice premium to the Mercury dime. Although the Mercury dime is not the rarest dime, it is definitely the most popular dime in U.S. history. The 1916D remains the most difficult to locate and expensive to buy. Initially, the 1916D was not aggressively pursued because it took a while for collectors to realize how light the strike run had been. So initially, they didn't know they only made 264,000, so people didn't collect them or save them and keep them in pristine conditions. That's why they're so hard to find. Errors make coins more valuable. The most famous error for Mercury dime occurred in 1942 when the coin was overdated or restamped onto the 1941 dime. This happened both in Denver and in Philadelphia, causing the popularity of these anomalies to compete with the 1916D. In their lowest grade, they go for at least $500, even though it's very difficult to identify the error. Another anomaly happened in 1945 when a size change occurred on the San Francisco mint mark. Today they are known as the Micro S series and sell for a premium over the regular S series. Because of the impressive design, the Mercury dime proofs are beautiful. Only produced for 7 years, from 1936 to 1942, a complete proof set in PR65 condition goes for about $5,000. The Mercury dime remained in circulation until 1945, when the death of Franklin D. Roosevelt sparked a public desire to honor and immortalize the well-loved leader. Obviously, we are still using the Roosevelt dime today. However, they were only 90% silver until 1964. Alright, so why don't I move these over a little bit, because what I want to do is I want to get out the red book and take a look at that. We can leave the dimes here. We'll just set it over the top of the dimes. Alright, so most of you should know this book. If not, you should have one probably if you're collecting coins. It's the United States coins. I got the large print edition 2020. So I think this is the 73rd edition. I think the 2022's been out for a while. I like this one because it's spiral bound. And you can get them quite a bit smaller. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to... I mean, it's got everything from... it's got everything in here. Anything you want to know, it's in here. Now, the red book can be used to estimate values and stuff, but most people would tell you, and I would agree, that the red book has high value on stuff, higher than what it probably really sells for. But one of the great things about the red book is that it gives you mintages and some pictures, and so, you know, the dimes are all in order. You can see here, the Barber start here. Come over here. All right, so here's where the Mercury dime starts in the red book. And I'll see if I can zoom in if necessary and stuff. So it goes through, it gives you a little, you know, definition about the dime itself and some of the details about what it looks like in these different conditions, because down here, the condition's important for what the value is. But what's nice about the red book is it shows you the mintages and how much they can be worth, and you can determine, you know, key dates and semi-key dates with it as well. So this is where we can see the information about the 1916D right there. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Alright, so 1916 by itself, that would be the Philadelphia with no mint mark, over 22 million. San Francisco, over 10 million. But as we discussed, the 1916D, only 264,000. So you can see in a G4 condition, which G4 would be in, you know, pretty rough shape, it's still worth $800. And if you get all the way up to MS65, it's worth $25,000. Now, one thing you have to be aware of is this coin is commonly faked, where they will add a D. They can take a 1916 without a mint mark and add a D to it. And they're pretty good at it. You really have to be careful. If somebody were to try to sell you one of these without them being graded, I would pass. I would make them grade it first, because there's some pretty good counterfeits out there. All right. So as we come down, we can see all these mintages. You can see there was a lot of them made. Then we get down to 1921. And 1921 is considered a semi-key date because, look, in Philadelphia, they only made a little over 1 million, 1.2 million. And on the Denver one, they only made just over 1 million. So the 1921D, I guess I should push the book up so you can see it, right? There we go. Hey. So as we can see, the 1921D was just over 1 million. And the 1921P was 1.2 million. And then we can see the cost as we go across here, right? So on the D, you get a nice one. Now, it'd be pretty hard to just come across an MS65 unless somebody had it stashed away for a long time, but still over $3,000. And even the 21P, the Philadelphia one, still has some respectable value to it, right? So 1921, if you ever buy rolls, you know what? I've never been through my coins. I've never really looked at the dates in these things. I mean, I could have, you know, a 21 in here. Who knows? One of these days, probably after I retire, I'm going to go through them and check them and see. So this is what they base it on. They really base it on the mintage amounts. And so as we continue on down here, we can see that everything, let me pull it up a little bit. Everything's looking pretty high in the numbers until we get down to 1926S. Only 1.5 million. You can see here again at a high grade, 3,500. But if we get back up here and we look at the 21Ds, you can see like an F12, which stands for fine. You know, on the 21D, it's 200. Here it's 26. EF extra fine, 40, 675, 250. So because of the 500,000 more dimes being made, they're worth less. But still, I mean, wouldn't it be great to come across one of these in your pocket that's worth 250, 450 bucks? Probably unlikely. I think these things have been, searched out pretty good. But, you never know. Let's look at this one. Hey, is it a... nope. It's a 1930. Oh, man. I was hoping it was a 21D. Come on. Alright, so let's flip the page. Let me just put the book together a little bit. I love the spiral bounds because I can do that. And so we're still looking at mintages here. So we come down, lots of them made. Oh, then we look at the 31D, right? 1.2 million. It's not nearly as much as the other ones we looked at, but still worthy to note. Let's see how all these are $3 and $4, $3.50, $3.25, but that's $8. It's important to note that you can come across one of these and it's worth a little bit more money, but nearly. Let me look back on the other page. Yeah, the other ones at the lowest grade, $45, $60, $13. So yeah, keep an eye on that. And again, these give you some important information. Like after 1930, this little A footnote says dimes dated 1923D or 1930D are counterfeit. So if you ever see a 23D or a 30D, you know they're counterfeit. So 30D, it doesn't really look like they even made any, right? So I don't know why you put a D on something that wasn't even made. You'd have to know it's counterfeit. Let's look back at 1923. So there was no 23Ds made either. That same A footnote was in there. All right, so that's interesting. I think it might be worth a little bit of money just be counterfeit, though. A lot of people like to buy counterfeit type stuff from the history that it represents. All right, so I like this. This is really cool. We're going to talk about the 42 over 41 down here at the bottom. Let me move it up here. Let's get this on the screen too. All right, so this is an example of what the 42 on 41 overstamp looked like that we talked about. So you can see clearly there's a 1 there and then the 2 was stamped over it. And this one isn't quite as noticeable, but it's there. So if you see any 1942 dimes, and I've seen a lot in my collection, but I've never seen one that has that stamp on it. But these obviously have some value too, so we'll take a look at those. In the meantime, we'll kind of cruise down our list here and still look at our numbers. 34... Look at this, 1936, 87 million of them made. Coming down. So yeah, they're still, look at 1941, 175 million made. But over here we can start to see where the proofs comes in. Remember I said the proofs were made from 1936 to 1942? So 42 down to here. So I believe the parentheses here are representing how many proofs are made. So 1936, there's 4,000 proofs made. 37, there was 5,000 proofs made. 8,000, 9,000, 11,000, 16,000, 22,000. So here's the 6 years of the proofs, 7 years. 7 years of proofs. And what their value are in good condition. And in theory, the proof should be in good condition because people bought them knowing that they weren't circulated coins and held on to them. A little surprised they're not worth more than that, right? Because they're proof in beautiful shape. But anyway, then over here we can see the 42 over 41 and 42 over 41. The first one's the Philadelphia. And the second one's the Denver. Now, let me scoot it up a little bit, just off the page. So the 41, or the 42 Philadelphia, 42 over 41, and the Denver 42 over 41 are here. And you can see now they made 205 million 1942 coins, so they made a lot of them from Philadelphia. But the 42 over 41 is, look at how much you can get for that coin. Philadelphia is worth more than Denver, which is kind of strange. There must be less Philadelphia because they made quite a few less in Denver that year. But yeah, look at that. I mean, even an F12, which is a fine, is $425, $450. You get up into a, mint state, which mint state would be probably pretty tough to find. You'd probably have to go out and buy that if you wanted it. But when you look at that, look at how much these coins command. Wow. That is some serious cash. And could these be found in circulation? I think they could be. I think there might be some out there. So be checking for this stuff. If you're buying constitutional silver, 90% junk silver, you need to be looking for this stuff. Unlike me, who hasn't been looking. I will one day, but I got to make sure. I've sold some too, or there was a time when I actually did some trades, and I didn't look at them before I traded, and I kind of regret that now, especially after some of the research that I've done. I should have looked at them. There's just no reason not to. That's kind of a little silly on my part. And then here, remember we talked about the micro S. Here's a normal S, and there's a micro S. It's a little bit smaller. And you can see here, it commands a little bit more money. Not much in the, lesser grades, but as you get up a little bit higher into the mint state grades, they get some decent money. So yeah, the little asterisk means it was included in number above. So between the two, they made almost 42 million for the year. And that was it. That was the last year they were made, 1945. Roosevelt dime started in 1946. And through 1964, they were 90% silver as well. All right, so what do you think, huh? Pretty cool or what? So I think the last thing I'll do, let me zoom back out, is I want to weigh a couple rolls of these mercuries. I recently did a video on how rare is junk silver, and during that video I showed how much further down a mercury roll was in the tube compared to a Roosevelt roll. And one person commented that even though it looks further down, like equivalent to 4 or 5 dimes, it's really the top of the edges that get wore down and not the silver. It doesn't lose a lot of silver. So I thought while we were talking about mercury dimes, I would go ahead and weigh one of each, the mercuries versus the Roosevelts, and let's see how they compare. Alright, so I got my scale out. Let's see what I want to do here. I'll put these back in the tubes later, but why don't I scoot them over here a little bit. And see if I can get my scale on the screen. Let's tear it. And let's see how many grams they weigh. So let me get this over where you can see it. Let me zoom in a little bit. You see it? It's kind of hard to see. There we go. That's a little better. Let's leave it there. All right. So I think I'll weigh 2 of each, and let's compare. All right. So I'm just going to pick one of these rolls at random that I had stacked over here, and I'm going to just leave them in the tubes with the lids off because the plastic should pretty much be consistent. So let's weigh the first one. It's 128.6 grams. Okay. And then the Roosevelt's 132.1. So we're talking about what? 3.5 grams? That's quite a bit. All right, let's weigh another mercury. 130.1. So that weighs quite a bit more. What was this one? This one was 128.5. I think we said 0.6, 128.5. And 130.2. So this is almost 2 grams more. Interesting, huh? All right, and let's weigh our other Roosevelt. We got 132.2. That's 132.2. And this one was 132.1. So the Roosevelts are real consistent. So $10 face, 264.2 grams. And 258.5, so 264.2. So we're talking about almost a 6 gram difference. Now, I'm not going to convert this to what they should be or anything because I'm not sure how much the plastic containers weigh. And so we'd have to consider that in the weight because I'm sure they're over because of that. But you can see between the $10 face, you're getting 6 grams more with the Roosevelts than you are the Mercury. So if you're purely a stacker and you're purely stacking for weight, I would say you'd want to buy the Roosevelts every time because the Roosevelts did not suffer as much silver loss as the Mercurys did. Now, if you're a collector and you want some American history and you just love the Mercury Dimes, well then, pick up some Mercurys, but just understand that you're not going to get as much silver. But also understand when you go to sell them, you can usually get a little bit more for them. Usually. The auctions I see, people are willing to pay just a little bit more. But a lot of other people, stackers like myself, see a roll of dimes as a roll of dimes and only want to pay, what the fair market value is for 0.715 ounces of silver. All right, so what do you think about the Mercury Dime, huh? Beautiful, beloved coin. I love it myself. I know a lot of coin collectors, a lot of stackers, and just normal, regular people love the Mercury Dime as well. These are great fractional silver. Takes 14 of them to make an ounce of silver. And if you're ever in a bartering situation, an SHTF situation, these are the perfect coin to do stuff like that. So I would highly encourage you to get these as part of your stack if you're not. And, because of the little bit less weight you usually get with the Mercurys, get some Rosies too. I mean, dimes are dimes, right? In the situations I was talking about, they'll both work. And I don't believe that in a real bad situation that they're going to care if they're Mercurys or Roosevelts. They're just going to know that they're silver dimes, 90% silver, and do some trading for some. All right, pretty cool, huh? Love these dimes. All right, well, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and always remember, let's keep talking bullion.